Here we are live. Hi, it's Melinda Kunst with my special guest today. Laura, I am so excited and happy that you're here to discuss teens and the important topic of parenting with teens, raising those respectful parents. Now, you're considered the teen and parent relationship whisperer. I thought that was awesome.
So they say.
Now, you are a sociologist. You are a family sociologist. You have more than 30 plus years of experience with practical youth development and parenting coaching. I think that's awesome. And you've also raised 2 adult children, and you all survived.
Yes. That's my biggest credential. That's my greatest credential.
Yes. Well, let me ask. Now, you have this award-winning book, and that is, I'm going to post it down there, How to Raise Respectful Parents. It's on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Can I ask, first off, how did you come up with that as a topic? Was it just something that evolved? Can you tell me about that?
It did evolve over time. I had the... they always tell you, your book coaches tell you, to write the book that you want to read, right? I mean, that's like the classic piece of advice you get is that's where you're going to be most authentic. That's where you'll attract your audience. And it's what's on your heart. So I had an adolescence that was troubled. I grew up in an alcoholic home. And my parents later found sobriety and recovery, and I'm super grateful for that. And we are connected and close today. And it ended well for us, or not ended, but as you know, we grew beyond that. But I wanted to speak to this sense of feeling foreign in your own family, of feeling like you're on the outside looking in, and that's probably true for all adolescents to some degree. You just kind of look around and go, how did I get here? How did I land in the middle of this? And then my own journey and training as a sociologist also helped me understand about the social location of adolescents versus the social location of adults. And I was very intrigued by communication throughout that process. And then I wrote the book to teens it actually opens up with, okay, you've landed from a foreign planet and you have to figure these people out, and what would you do to dissect this culture that you landed in the middle of, and how would you figure out what it meant? And that's how it starts, is talking about the difference between youth culture and adult culture, and how to swim in that whole milieu, if you will, and it's so tongue-in-cheek. It's fun in the beginning, but then it introduces communication skills, and each communication skill has real-life conversations that occur between adults and teens. Some are about substance abuse, some are about staying out late, some are about tutoring, all the gambit of things that kids deal with, that I dealt with, right? Okay. And those exercises at the end of each chapter can then be used with parents and teens together. So the language targets teens, but it's intended for parents and teens to go through it together.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And as a kid, I always thought my parents were definitely from another planet. So,
right. I think that's kind of a universal thesis, if you will, or launching pad to then talk about how we really connect with one another. And one of the things I talk about is, how do you get to heart communication versus defense to defense communication?
Okay. Yeah. Well, that's definitely important, because you know what? I'll be honest with you. I stumbled and muddled through parenting with my older kids. I didn't always do the right things. And then someone taught me, his name is Brian. He taught me about the parent hat. He's like, you don't have to be their friend, but you could tell them you're going to take off your mom hat, and then you can have this heart-to-heart talk.
Right.
Open. Okay, my mom hat's off. Now I'm going to put it back on when I have to be, mom again. But that really opened up a line of communication.
That's nice.
It did, and my son. It really has been made just a bunch of differences. Now, I never knew, because I come from a domestic violence and childhood abuse survival too. I never knew about boundaries. How can you start, especially if you're having troubled teens and you're a troubled parent, how can you start setting boundaries then?
Right. Well, I think it comes from the communicating what's inside of you first and foremost, right? Representing who you are in the clearest way possible. And the thing that I share with parents and shared with my girls is I'm responsible for my thoughts, my actions and feelings, and you're responsible for your thoughts, your actions and feelings. So that's the real clear place. We can almost say anything to one another as long as it's clear that, you know, I'm not responsible for what you feel. You're not responsible for what I feel, or do, even in that sense, so that we each have the integrity of personal responsibility. And I'm also part of the conscious parenting movement. Dr. Shafali Taspari is the parenting guru that Oprah has championed, if you will. And she talks about this awakening that your children are not an extension of who you are. They are their own unique souls in and of themselves. And the things that we often do with them societally is we want them to be a reflection that makes us proud. And we slip sometimes into projecting our own fears and concerns onto them when, they came with their own journeys and they have their own path to follow. So it's been a privilege to get to know the other parents that are part of this conscious parenting movement. But the truth is, it's an awakening for all of us. No one does it perfectly, nor should they, because our kids very much need to see us make mistakes and own them and grow through them. That provides sometimes one of the greatest models for them.
Oh, definitely. And you see that, though. Sometimes you see these parents that are pushing their kids to almost overachieve, which is kind of sad. And I admit it, I have high hopes for my kids too. It's like, oh, you got to go to college and you got to do this and that. I didn't, but I can see that. So I think also then you as a parent, thinking you need to learn some tools yourself in order to have this work.
Right. And some of those tools that I talk about, they come from real conversations. It's active listening, and we've heard a lot about active listening, lately. It's saying the last 2 or 3 words or a phrase right back to the person that you're talking to. So it's almost as if you're a mirror to their emotion, and you say, I see you being scared. Am I hearing this correctly? And you actively share back what you're hearing from them. And then they get to affirm or deny that that's the message they're wanting to give. And it usually invites them to disclose more. And that's certainly what we want our kids to be able to do to us, right, is to grow that trust and be able to open up about the stresses that they're dealing with these days. It's pretty heavy.
Oh, yeah. It's definitely a different time than when I was a kid. It really is. With the internet and things are going so fast, and kids know many things that I didn't know about. There's things these kids know that I'm just learning about as an adult, almost 50.
Right.
And it just boggles the mind.
Which I think makes the imperative of consciousness and healthy communication even greater, because we don't know what kind of world they're going to inherit. We have no idea what the jobs are going to look like. Technology is advancing at such a rapid rate that the best way we can prepare them is through the interpersonal piece. An intrapersonal piece, which is the communication.
Okay. And I like that. I like that idea. Now, is that also because you've mentioned co-creation communicating? Put that together?
That same mindset that each individual has their own personal responsibility to share what's inside of them, right? And that we come to this relationship of teen and parent because the power's shifting. It's beginning to change. As they enter the teen world, we want them to be more increasingly responsible for themselves. And so that means that we have to let go of our perceived power, if you will. And what that means is we invite them to co-create the relationship that works together for all of us.
Okay. Yeah. I like that.
Yeah.
I like
It's a
that.
fancy word for what we do informally anyway. You know, think about when a baby's born, they cry and we respond. You know? So we're actually co-creating that relationship all along. And the question is, do we want to do it consciously or, just kind of stumble through it unconsciously?
Oh, definitely.
And the book invites parents to learn and teens to learn the communication skills that help them get to the relationship that they want.
Now, do you go through also, you mentioned that you go through a lot of different challenges in your book. Do you also go into like the dangers of drug culture, dating?
There's some of that at the end from the teen perspective. It's not an advice book. It's an opportunity to explore some of that. And again, encourages you to talk about that, whether that be with the parent or another teen mentor.
Okay. Oh my goodness. You know what? There's just so much with that. And you have your own group too, this Heart to Heart Parents.
Yes, that's my page. Heart to Heart Parents is a coaching practice for parents and teens. That's where I have the most fun, is when the teen will trust us to go into a coaching session with the parent, and they both learn these skills together, and then we have practice conversations, and they can then take that out into their relationship, and it's just a blast for me. And it's wonderful because the parent gets to share truly from the heart what their fears and concerns are, and the teen gets to feel empowered, by the communication. So it really has transformed the dynamic, and it's been a privilege to be a part of.
Oh, that's amazing. Now, when these people come to you, these parents and teens, do they come to you at a point to where there's just a lot of brokenness, or is they're just entering that teen phase, and so parents just want to kind of head off?
Kind of act as prevention, right? The truth is, most of my clients do come from a sense of brokenness. That pain factor is what drives them to change, right? Drives them to look for something different to try to better connect. Unfortunately, fear is a good motivator. So, yeah, they do come at a crisis point, but it quickly moves through that because of the communication skills.
Wow.
Yeah, and a slow dawning. I think the consciousness and the awakening, the spiritual centering that occurs is kind of the educational variety, of, like we like to say.
Oh my goodness. And you've won so many awards for this book. And that is just amazing. Now, is this more than you thought it would be? Because you've been on countless talk shows and so on.
Well, on some podcasts, yes. I think every author, kind of turning to your author audience now, every author has this idea. I have my baby, I wrote it, it's ready to go. I had it edited. Whether you decide to publish traditionally or self-publish, mine was traditionally published with a small press out of South Carolina, and I was really grateful for that. So they walked me through a little bit of process. I had a little bit of hand-holding there. But these days, authors have to market themselves like crazy. So you get it out there and you think, I'm done. But the truth is you're not ever done. That's when the race really starts, is building the audience and doing the marketing. And oftentimes, people talk about setting up your audience before you publish, which would be the ideal. Unfortunately, that's not what I did. I've walked a slow journey up a mountain to build some audience and following around it, but that's okay. You learn as you go. Definitely. And I have definitely found some kindred spirits along the way. And I want to share with your authors too that, finding some good coaches, like the coach has to be coached. As I coach teen and parents, I had to be willing to be teachable because this was a brand new, an entirely new world. Yeah, entirely new world about publishing and marketing and online presence and, all of that. At first, it's daunting and scary, but then you realize it's just about relationship building. one friendship at a time. It's like how you and I met.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that kind of calmed the fears a little bit, and being willing to share your own stories and your own pain, because I think that's what draws people to you, is that shared identification.
Definitely. And I'm so glad you went for it, because you are changing lives. I think it's amazing what you're doing to help so many.
Very kind, very kind. I'm the one that feels privileged by it, that people let me in. That's really wonderful.
So you also have a Raising Respectful Parents Facebook group too.
I do, and that's been fun. We have a Friday funny that we like to do there. Some quirky something to laugh about this crazy journey of parenting. It's also a non-judgment free zone.
Oh, nice.
That we want people to open up and share their real journeys. And nobody's an expert. It's just shared experience and supporting one another through these difficult times of raising teenagers.
Oh, now I have to ask too. Now, your own challenges you were a single mom,
right?
And now how has that played such a part in your book? How did that help you with your relationship with the kids? Did you go through those battles? Because divorce is pretty sticky when it comes to adults. Did you also have those issues with the kids as well?
Right. Certainly so. And my daughters are 9 years apart, so the age range is pretty great. And what works for one, as one was just exiting and launching as the young adult did, the second one was coming along from pre-adolescence into teenager life. So that was a challenge, that huge dichotomy. I was blessed to have a support group around me that I leaned on. And those times were both challenging, but both also exciting. There's no one to blame when you're a single parent. The buck stops there. And so if it's going to be done, it's you. If it messes up, it's your fault. And that helped with this motivation of writing the book. That the heart of it is personal responsibility.
Now, would you suggest then someone? Let's talk about being a single mom then, a single parent. Would you suggest then someone finds a community of others in order just to have that friendship, to talk, to bond?
Right, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a support group about single parenting. It can also be a support group of people that like knitting together, or like us, like parents of teens. Finding people with like experience in a way that helps you feel safe is the most important part, I think, so that you can have another adult to bounce something off of. That's what I mean.
Yes.
And I was also blessed to have mentors in my daughter's lives. Lifelong friendships that we've had that they were connected to. Each one had a different mentor, and it's not like I chose that for them, but because we had some close ties, it was a very natural way to connect. And I believe that helped them through the process as well, because everybody needs to say, my mom's driving me crazy. And we need to do that with our teens too, right? And have that non-judgment free zone that we can go to. Try to do with the Facebook group as well.
Oh, I have to ask, because a lot of parents now don't have teens at home. Many parents now are having their older children, their 20s and 30s, come back home. Can you still use tactics from your book?
Thank you so much for bringing that up. That is so true, and I am living that experience. My oldest daughter had some health problems and had to move home for a while. And, she's beginning to recover financially and she's back at work, but she sat out of work for nearly 2 years. And that's been a challenge. I know these communication skills work because I've lived them these past 2 years, and being very respectful of her boundaries, and then also standing up for myself and being respectful for what myself and what I needed. And that brings up another issue, right, of self-care, that's such a critical part of parenting these days is our model as women oftentimes is that self-sacrificing model, but we bring our best selves to our kids and share and actually share for them what it means to love yourself enough to take good care of yourself. So that was an important part of having her back home, was making sure that I didn't deplete myself.
Oh, that is so important. I'm glad you brought that up because as parents, well, as people, a lot of us don't take time to do a little self-care. And sometimes when you don't do that, you reach this almost like a flashpoint and then you go off. You might explode. And if you don't have that, I mean, maybe it is you pick up a hobby. Maybe you just go for a walk. If you don't take care of yourself, you might actually pour gas on a fire.
Exactly.
Yes.
And, as authors, oftentimes we're introverted. We like the personal time, the solitude to process. And I really had to respect that, respect my own need for the time to pull away. Having her back in the house was essential to draw those boundaries as well. And she was more than willing to respect them. It was me. I was the one that needed to see it differently. That this is a brand new relationship we're embarking on.
That's awesome. That really is. That's great. And sometimes it might not feel so great. I've got a 19-year-old at home now, and I'm trying to push her out of the nest, but she is not budging.
Right.
But she has a lot of anxiety.
I'm really grateful for my training in sociology because we know now that adolescents last into their 30s in Western culture. And it's not so much that we're doing anything quote unquote wrong, but it's that their life is so our economy is set up to where they enter at entry level positions and they're not prepared to live on that salary. And then what we teach them, right? It takes a long time to get schooling. If you're going to choose the college route or the grad school route, it takes a long time to develop that. So adolescents can go forever. Almost.
And I didn't know that. That's crazy.
Neuroscientists have told us that the brain doesn't fully develop until they're 28 or 29. So perhaps having that adult anchor close in their lives is helpful as they fully mature and make hopefully good decisions for themselves, but also wrestle with the decision making.
That makes sense because I know some folks that are in their 20s and I would have to just shake my head thinking, well, you're an adult, but that makes sense now. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, it takes a long time, right?
Right. Well, I remember when I was in my 20s, I thought I knew it all.
Right.
Not only as a teen, but as an adult, I did. But that makes sense because I didn't, and I didn't feel like I was mature enough to make some of the important decisions that I had to make. So that makes sense.
Right. Really and I don't think that there's a tightrope to walk here, right? Okay. And it's that we don't get overly involved with our kids' lives either, because you've heard of the helicopter parenting and that overprotectiveness, even almost codependent. But communicating this way about in a conscious way, honoring who they are, allows you to reflect their abilities back to them. Yes, you can do this. It's very empowering to communicate this way, but it also has the counterbalance, because for me, it's been very gratifying that my girls come to me and want input, and I have to sometimes use that practice my own boundaries here about saying, okay, I hear you saying this. Do you want my perspective? And if they say no, I got this, then I have to you know. Other times they allow me to kind of coach them, if you will, or share my experience about, you know, how it was when I was growing up. And sometimes it's, oh, mom, whatever, you know, but other times they're very interested, you know, about how do you pay bills and how do you turn on the lights and, you know, is this rental lease acceptable and this one not, you know, all of those kind of adulting behaviors. It's nice to have somebody that's been through it, right? Whether it's your parent or another mentor. So it's a complicated world we live in, and I'm blessed that my girls trust me and we have that ability to communicate about it. But it took some good work to get there.
Oh, I bet. I bet. Yeah. Now, speaking of work, you have a course.
I do. Right. Thanks for mentioning that. As the book is written to teens and talks about, you know, being dumped into this adult world and practicing the communication skills. And I shared that each chapter has exercises that the parent and teen can do together. Well, the course is actually written to the adult. So it's written to the parent. And it's using the same communication skills, but from the adult perspective. So they're a complement to one another. The book is to the coursework.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and I'm so excited that there's a discount that I'm offering right now. It's $200 off. So it'll eventually be much more than it is right now. But grab it right now in pre-registration. The course drops on September 1st.
Down here, yes.
Yes, and it's called Turn Your Teen Around by Tuning Into Yourself. Oh. And it's all about that kind of self-awareness and communicating from this place of personal responsibility and empowerment, and then co-creating the relationship you really want to help your teens be effective as they grow into adults.
Oh, wow. Now that's wonderful that you have that discount. And you are very generous. As it is, if someone goes to your website, they'll find the 2 chapters, free chapters for your book. And also they'll find a conflict-free conversation checklist for parents and teens. So you are very generous in your free gifts there. So if somebody is interested, you can go to her website and get those freebies also.
Right. It's a /gift, so LyleReagan.com/gift. And that's a fun piece, that conflict-free conversation checklist. And I find that, you know, to your author audience, that the generosity piece is really important. It's what grows your audience. And for me, this is a heart mission. You know, I don't really make money off the book. It just helps generate the audience, you know, and build the community around it. And I'm really grateful for that.
And you made me giggle, because the first thing when people hear that you're an author, they're like, oh, you got to be rolling in the money. You know, I could show you my royalty checks.
Right.
You have to write because you have a passion for it.
Exactly.
If you're into it and to make money when you're just starting out, yeah, that's no.
My brother, who painted this painting behind me, he's an art professor at our local university, and he says you paint because you have to paint, and it applies to writing, right? You write because you have to write. I mean, that's what authors do. It's just who we are. So when you know that about yourself, then it's all okay. It's about what you want to give to the world, who you want to be in the world.
And you are giving wonderful, wonderful advice and help for so many. I said that before, and I can't say it enough. I think it's amazing, the job that you're doing. I really do.
Very kind.
And do you speak at schools as well?
I do. I want to share that tip as well with your author's audience here, because I write grants. That's how I first entered the writing world, was to write grants for school districts and nonprofits. And I was able to write a grant for a school that funded the first manifestation of my book, if you will, as a curriculum for communicating with between parents and teens for parent educators that were parent involvement coordinators in their schools. And so the first attempt at this book was actually the curriculum for doing the workshop for them. And that was a paid piece. So that's kind of exciting when you think about you can get paid to write your book. It wasn't just an artist in residence or a writers in residence program. It was doing it through a grant for a school district that I was able to get a little bit of income that gave me the time and space to write it. And that was great, to be able to first say, before you even write it down and sell it, that there was a little mini income stream there. So I've been also privileged to be able to help some authors do that, to write some grants for their, heart-centered mission, whatever that was, for various workshops. They get their speaker fees and then bulk book sales off of it.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. Oh my gosh. And you know what, that is something great that you bring up, because speaking is one of those things that writers really should think about maybe doing to promote themselves, to help bring in that extra revenue.
Right.
Yes.
Right. One of our mentors, as you well know, Alexa Bigworth, talks about, the authors that are doing well are the ones that have multiple income streams. And
yes.
And that's what I'm beginning to dip my toe in the water with, and you're doing with your podcast, and I'm doing with the course, and the coaching as well, is having multiple streams of income. It also just feels good, because then there's a community that gets built around your book.
Mm-hmm. So if there's one piece, you gave already several pieces of advice, but if there's one other crucial piece of advice you would give to, let's say, let's start with the teens and parents, what would you give a parent and teen that is maybe at their wit's end? What is one piece of great advice you can give to them right now?
Right. Well, the big number one piece is of encouragement. It's never too late. Let me say that again. It's never too late. I don't care how.
It's never too late.
I don't care how stressed it is. It's never too late. And also from the teen side, it's never too late to feel heard by your parents. And there's a way to communicate that helps adults hear you better. And then there's also for the parents, there's a way to come to peace and harmony in your family. And it's truly by honoring this amazing gift of the soul that we knew when they were little children and we could hold them and we had control. But the truth is, they're just as beautiful as teens, because they're these budding, amazing adults, budding adults, not adults yet, but budding adults. And they need us just as much. They really do. They just need us in a very different way. And this book gives some helpful tips to get there about how to be most effective in the way that they need you.
And if there's one great piece of advice you can give to aspiring authors, again, you gave already plenty.
Yeah, aspiring authors. I have two, if that's okay.
No, yeah, please.
The first is butt in chair. And one of the big processes of writing is sometimes procrastinating, right? And you only write when you have the butt in the chair. So I have to tell that to myself. First and foremost, is writing and being a writer, being an author is all about the time you put in and actually writing. It's not just all of the accoutrements around it, but it's actually doing it. So that's the number one. And then number two is find a coach. My coaches have been very helpful. I've had different ones at different times that specialized in different things. And that's been really helpful. And coaches will work with you. Even if you have limited resources, they will find a way. Just tell them that straightforward. I really am interested in your offering, but I need help financially. What's the one piece I can do right now? And it's amazing how generous people are. They want to see you succeed.
And that is, you bring up a good point. Asking. I have found the community of authors and other experts. Someone had asked me, well, how do you get these amazing people on as guests? I said, I just asked. There is a little bit of a fear and a little bit of like, that they're responding to me, but you guys are all just people. We're all people.
Exactly.
Just ask.
Exactly.
Yes.
And they sat in our shoes, right? As beginning writers and wannabe authors, they sat in our shoes, and they very much want to give back. At least that's been my experience.
Yes. Yes. I'm going to give a quick shout out to my friend Rita too. She said hi. So hi, Rita.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So we have one bit of important news to talk to you about too, real quick, which announcement. I'm going to have her back. Laura's going to come on back next month to talk about bullying. It's so very important. Now that school's going to be starting, unfortunately, we're going to hear some stories coming out in the news, I'm sure, about kids being bullied. So I've asked her to please come on back and give us some tips, and that'll be next month. I will let you folks know when that'll be, but she'll be back here for those great tips. And any other final comments that you'd like to make, Laura, before we
I just want to say, first and foremost, thank you so much for this opportunity to share with your audience.
Oh, you are most welcome. Thank you. Thank you so very much. Let's see, I have another comment here. Oh, Michelle says, awesome topics. Thanks, Michelle.
Great.
All right, well, we're going to sign off. Thank you so very much for joining us, and we'll be back here in a couple weeks. I have another great guest for you, so stay tuned. And thank you, Laura, for joining us. You guys have a great night. Bye.
Bye, guys.